637 Nashville's Morning News on Super Talk 99.7 WTN. Welcome on in to your Thursday, March 6th of 2025. Jonathan Fahey joins us on the Newsmaker Hotline. Jonathan, always appreciate having you on, former acting director of ICE under the Trump administration. So I'm certain, and I've been regaling the folks listening with this horrendous audio of Ayanna Pressley. Don't worry, folks, I'm not going to play it again. But she was screaming with James Comer. You know, there is this hearing, the sanctuary city mayors coming in, defending their sanctuary city policies. And there's a lot of bad behavior from Ayanna Pressley. And she was screaming about the fact that, and she wanted to enter all of these articles into evidence. And she basically wanted to read these articles as the spotlight was being shown on the crimes, including rapes of illegal alien men. And so she was trying to point out, well, you know, there's more rapes committed by American-born men than illegal alien men. Well, that, number one, there's a lot more native-born men than there are illegal alien men. Okay. But the point is that it is just stunning to me that within this hearing, you had all of these leftist progressive Democrats that are trying to literally defend the crimes of these illegal aliens.
It's truly astonishing when you think about it, because it's like the Democratic Party puts the interest of illegal aliens ahead of the American safety every single time. And it's just amazing that, you know, even after this election, that they are really, as a party, sticking with this. And, you know, we've talked about it so many times, but they always put the interest of illegal aliens ahead of the American people in every respect, whether it's safety, you know, tax dollars, things like that. And it's truly astonishing to how they're still behaving, and that these sanctuary cities, you know, they never take any responsibility. They lie about what they're doing. And the one of the most important things is they're not in isolation. So when they let somebody out, say New York, and they go and kill somebody, say in Georgia, as we know happened, you know, that affects all of us. So they don't get to run their own independent countries, and they seem to think they can, and just ignore ICE detainers, put law enforcement agents in danger, the American people in danger. It's really disgusting, and it does seem like the Democrats are maintaining this open borders at all cost policy, at least by and large, as a party.
One of the things is you look at the data. I mean, we have seen the data. And number one is there have been a lot of violent crimes, murder, rape, battery, all of those things that have been committed by illegal aliens. And it just, oftentimes those crimes are committed obviously against people that were born here, et cetera. But also those crimes are being committed against people from their own community. You and I have spoken about Tren de Aragua in Denver, and how this Venezuelan bloodthirsty gang, they were committing crimes against Venezuelans that were holed up in that apartment complex. And so not only are Americans who were born here victims, but also you've got people that are in this country as well, either legal, illegal, whatever, but they're also victims of these crimes. And so those crimes end up being underreported as well, right?
Yeah, exactly. That's kind of the fun irony of the Democrats' talking points on this thing is, on one hand, they say there's actually less crime, but then they say, but if they think but there's a lot of crime not being reported because everyone's afraid to get deported by ICE. So it's like, which one is it? You know, like, yeah, so it's funny how they just try to dance around that. But you're exactly right in terms of, yeah, the people they act like they're standing up for are actually end up being more victimized than they otherwise would. And the idea that you wouldn't want a child rapist to get removed from your community and your country is remarkable to me. But the only reason that you can think of that this makes sense is because the Democrats want as many illegal aliens in this country as possible. And that's been their policy for the whole Biden administration, and they haven't changed on it, even though the voters rejected it, which is pretty amazing, like how out of step they are on some of these issues, because the American people want criminals deported and want illegal aliens deported in mass, but certainly almost everyone, I think it's over 80%, want the criminals deported. So the Democrats are another, you know, the wrong end of another 80-20 issue, which is, as a party, you think it doesn't make a whole lot of sense for them.
Yeah, those 80-20 issues, man, we are the 80% of an abundance of those things. And so this is a headline. Jonathan Fahey joining us. This is a headline from one of the local television stations this morning. Refugees no longer coming to Nashville for the foreseeable future because Donald Trump has terminated their federal funding. This is an organization called the Nashville International Center for Empowerment. And what they do is they work to resettle refugees who were cleared to move to Nashville, they say legally. Last year, they helped resettle about 500 people in Middle Tennessee. And one of the things that they say is that these refugees undergo several years of vetting, security screenings, both by U.S. agencies and by international agencies, says this organization. But basically, they're saying that Trump killed their funding, and so we're not going to have any more of these folks coming into our community. And I'm assuming this is one of those NGOs where they get federal funding and they work hand in hand with the government to bring these people here. Let's not forget that Joe Biden abused the parole program by flying thousands, millions of people into this country through the parole program, which, as many people pointed out, including you, was an abuse of his power.
Yeah, it really is amazing that the taxpayers have been paying to bring illegal aliens in and also provide all these services, like you said, through NGOs and things like that, which, what a scam that is, right? These organizations make millions of dollars, probably none of it's really tracked, to bring people in that are essentially violating the law, making our communities less safe, and making our country poorer in terms of, draining tax base and everything else. Yeah, it's really disgusting. And it's funny, it just shows how much the money, drives these left-wing policies, or how much, when you look at these NGOs as a whole, it's always left-wing organizations that get them. There's never, you're never going to have the NGO Right to Life or anything like that. So it's like, why do we even have these things is a real question. But, when you look at the overall cost of illegal immigration, which we've talked about many, many times, but it's at least 150 billion tax dollars a year. So all of this is stuff we can't spend on other things, plus all the, services that decrease in value in terms of education, healthcare, things like that. So this is an extremely expensive problem. And Donald Trump, by just cutting some things, showing, actually talking tough and doing a little bit, has probably saved so many lives and so many tax dollars. And just we're like second month into this thing. Yeah.
645 Nashville's Morning News. Coming up, Byron Donalds eviscerates the sanctuary city mayors. So Byron Donalds, of course, everybody knows, congressman out of Florida. He's now running for governor. And he had some questions for these mayors of Denver and Chicago. Listen.
How much did your city spend on illegal immigration? Do you have a round number?
Over the last couple of years on all newcomers, whatever their status was, it's around $79 million since 2022.
$79 million. Mayor Johnson, Chicago. How much has the city of Chicago spent on illegal immigration?
If you're referring to the 2022 up to 2024 of the buses coming from Texas, roughly the same percentage of the state of Texas, about 1% of our overall budget.
What is that? Because I don't have the city's budget in front of me. Numbers.
It's 1%, and if you want the actual calculation, we can make sure someone...
You're the mayor. You don't have the math in front of you?
It's 1% of the overall budget over the last 4 years.
That's why you're a failing mayor.
Love that. That's why you're a failing mayor. By the way, let me help out the mayor of Chicago. It's been estimated to be at least $574 million on illegal aliens. Did you watch any of this cluster yesterday, Jonathan?
I didn't watch it live, but I, was getting caught up on it afterwards and reading all about it. So it was just a mess. But one thing that's important to realize for people listening, they're lying about those numbers. What they're saying is that's the amount of money sort of on services to resettle them and things like that. They're not talking healthcare, and they're not talking education. They're not talking public safety and anything else. So they are absolutely lying about those numbers, even though those numbers are quite high. So that's something that's important for people to know, because healthcare and education cost a ton of money. Every kid going to school, at least where I am, is over $20K per student. So you put that in and put the other services in. So they are absolutely lying. They're hurting their own citizens in terms of educational quality and healthcare quality.
There was a lot of yelling and screaming. You got Jim Jordan, Byron Donalds, Ayanna Pressley, and everybody's going back and forth. You could say, and I say these things often enough, is that it does feel always like a dog and pony show. The question is, and as the former acting director of ICE for Donald Trump, you know as well as I do that these things can really devolve into showboating and all this other kind of stuff, soapboxing and so forth. What's the end result of all of these things? Is anything going to change? I mean, Donald Trump is doing what he needs to do without the help of some of these folks. I mean, what's the end result of these hearings with these sanctuary city mayors?
I agree. There's a lot of just showboating and somewhat nonsense to these things. However, I think this elevates the issue, bringing to the attention how bad these sanctuary cities are, how much they harm people. So in terms of, Donald Trump already knows, the administration already knows, but it's important to keep the public support behind it because Donald Trump can be more effective with the public behind him. So I think every chance the Republicans have to highlight this issue because it's so costly, has harmed so many people have lost their lives. So I think there's an overall value that's good, but there is a circus atmosphere to it. And a lot of the testimony is just this inauthentic canned testimony. I'm sure you talked about how much the Boston mayor paid a law firm to prepare for her testimony.
$650,000.
It's insane to get out there and, it's essentially, let's just be very careful, have some platitudinal things. And, it's so funny that it's like, and that's also taxpayer dollars for illegal immigration. So it's like, why can't a mayor go in there and answer questions with not having to pay a law firm? Like, that's really astonishing to me because it shows like, hey, do you have something you're very concerned about and you're walking the line on things like obstruction of justice, alien harboring, and things like that. And I'm sure that was, probably what she was being advised on because there are some significant criminal liability for some of these officials, some of these sheriffs, as they continue these policies.
Oh, yeah. And I've got more on that. But yeah, the mayor of Boston, it came out, she spent $650,000 in city funds in preparation for this, and she's hired high-powered law firms and the rest of that. So she is very much under the gun. But here's the deal. When she comes up for re-election, don't know what that is, but don't know when that is. But I'd be willing to bet the fine people of Boston, very left-leaning city, they're probably going to re-elect her because that's just what they do. Jonathan, how can people find you on the socials?
John for Fairfax, JONFORFAIRFAX on Twitter or on X. And, so if you want to follow me, I'm following Dan and love watching all your content.
All right. Thank you, Jonathan. And we'll see you again soon. Appreciate it. 6:51 on Nashville's Morning News.